Bitcoin came out January of 2009 and quantitative easing March of 2009. Why do they have all these cryptocurrencies colors in gold, silver, or platinum? We know how to do this.
What's up, everyone? Tiger Stacker here. Today, Lynette will be talking about confiscation and debasement of our fiat currency. And here I have an example of debasement. Initially, our first 5-cent piece was the half dime, made of 90% silver and 10% copper, minted from 1792 to 1873. Later came the nickel, made of copper and nickel, first minted in 1866, and it replaced the half dime in 1873. And this debasement continued until this very day. But Lynette has been teaching and guiding us to replace debased money with good, sound money, Tears Law. But it might take a little more planning than this. And voila! 4 nickels, copper and nickel, replaced by 4 silver dimes. An example of Tears Law. If we don't keep up the hard work, we will again see Gresham's Law, where bad money replaces good money. So let's go see Lynette.
They bring in the Trojan horse. I know this isn't a popular view, but, I've been following Bitcoin since it was $7 a coin. I saw it almost from its inception, not quite, but pretty darn close. And they brought that in. They had to get adoption. I do not think it was a coincidence that Bitcoin came out in January of 2009 and quantitative easing came out in March of 2009. So they allowed those private markets, and I don't know. I read the NSA white paper. I think this was all engineered personally. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I can't exactly prove it, but anybody can access the 1996 NSA white paper on how to make a mint. And they're getting us used to it. They want eyes on it. And by the way, this is not real gold. This is a Bitcoin. Why do they have all these cryptocurrencies colors in gold, silver, or platinum? Maybe there's a psychological reason, because they want you to think of this as gold. But you know what? It takes time and energy to pull this out of the ground. This holds that energy for use in every single sector of the global economy. This too takes energy to create, but it's used up in its creation. Store of energy, not a store of energy. Just a little thought that I wanted to throw out there, but they want it to go up because then you're looking at this nominal price going up, and they would much rather have you in something they can control than something they cannot control. And that's my take on it. I'm not saying that it's not going to be here to stay, but I can tell you that I don't know who's going to survive this. I know there'll be a small area of private cryptocurrencies, but the goal is to convert us all into CBDCs. My goal is to have a big enough seat at the table, because there's enough people that own gold and own silver, physical, that we have a say and can put a component of gold in the new currency. But here's the key, Tiger. Here's the key. It must be convertible. In other words, you must have the ability, and you're going to hear all of these asset-backed crypto things coming out. If you can't convert it, you can't prove that it's real. And we just saw this experiment in Zimbabwe. They vowed and they swore, and 40% of the currency. Oh, it's so stable. Oh. And then they turned around within 5 months or 6 months anyway, and they did a 44% overnight devaluation. Can't do it if it's backed. But you couldn't, even though they not really backed, it's just merely pegged to the manipulated market. Please, people, whoever is watching this, if you can't convert into it, and I don't care what they say, if you can't convert into it, there's no way for you to have any level of ownership or control. It is still in their ownership and their control. And I'm not just talking about gold. I'm talking about any of those asset-backed cryptos that are coming out. They're garbage. In my opinion, if you can't convert it, it means nothing.
Well, it's kind of funny you said that because I've always felt that crypto is the soft way to get us mentally prepared for CBDCs. Then I also watched a fella, he goes by the name of Silver Dave. He has a silver mint in New Hampshire. He also does his own research, and he did a video that proved that blockchain and all that is actually owned by the government.
Of course it is. And who controls the government? Do you think voters control the government? I don't think so.
Only when we vote. After that, the bullet's out of the barrel.
Well, the Electoral College really does the vote, don't they?
True. But if they don't follow what the people want, then the other things happen. But the point of the matter is that we get a say only on election. After that, the bullet's out of the barrel.
Yeah, and I think that's why one of the things that's happened recently that I was really glad to see was when President Biden changed the designation for marijuana. And I said, wow, that's because the states had adopted it and it forced the federal government to adopt that change as well. And I really do understand that we have to get the states to legalize or reinstate gold and silver as legal tender. Where's my silver? As legal tender, because if we can get enough states to legalize it, so it goes into the political realm. In a million years, I never thought that I would get political. I'm economic. I'm not political. I don't really have an opinion on any particular candidate because I've studied this enough, and going back to the confiscation laws and going back to any of the laws, it didn't matter whether it was a Republican or a Democrat that was in office, things were progressing. So that's why I don't typically get political. But I have come to realize that in terms of the states and their power to support the individual and make a difference at the federal level, we have to get that legalized. We have to do that.
I totally agree. In fact, I did an interview with West Virginia Congressman Chris Pritt, who put out there 2 bills to get gold and silver recognized as money. It's locked up in legislation. Mr. Pritt has subsequently finished his second term, but as I understand it, he's still somewhat in the whole lawmaking process and still sticking by his 2 bills to try to get it through. We have a few states that have accepted gold and silver as money. We have had a few states that quit taxing real money.
Right.
West Virginia got rid of their taxation law in 2019, and then you got the progressive, how do I say this? More and more states are adopting gold back as far as the ability to use that as an alternate for voluntary currency. Some people love gold back. Some people hate it. Me personally, I use it as well, actually, I don't use it. I do store because you might run into the first businessman who says, I'll let you use constitutional silver to buy whatever you want. The second businessman might not know what constitutional silver is and think that you're trying to fool him. So I got small pieces of pure silver labeled accordingly. And then you might get someone I'm not going to take any of their silver. I want gold. Well, there's no way I'm going to give them a big hunk of gold for some groceries. So,
right.
And even your 1/10 ounce might be too much. And they don't have a way to give you change back. So that's why I am a firm believer in goldbacks, because I plan on using them as my first line of defense in my chess game, my pawns in my chess for the third businessman who will not work with you on silver.
So that makes really a lot of sense. And also in the strategy that we utilize at Zang Enterprises, just what you're talking about, it's built in layers. And it depends on what it is that you're trying to accomplish would determine how much and what kind of gold and silver and even cash. And quite honestly, because I get this question a lot, and I'm familiar with gold backs, and I even own some gold backs, that I can see a place for it in that first line of defense, to your point. But there's also just regular cash outside of the system before they put a chip in there to mirror the negative rates, which they've talked about. And you know what you might want to take a look at? It's one of my all-time favorite IMF reports on how to make this transition without anybody realizing it. And it's breaking below the lower zero bound. Have you read that?
No, if your people could email it to me, I'll email it and keep it in the files.
Yeah, we can. And in the end of that, it gives you an 18-step place or list of how they make this transition. And if you read that whole thing, then what you're going to read in there is, we know how to do this. Like 1933, like 1971. They do know how to make this transition. And it is about keeping things as normal looking. And even the IMF, Karstens over at the IMF, he did a piece. And are you marking these down, Marie? Okay. He did a piece, and I'll send you that, and it'll have the link at the top, where he said, well, once we do a CBDC, we get people used to the cryptocurrencies, you're going to go to the grocery store and it's all going to seem like the same, but that's when it becomes different. And so they're talking about how to make this transition as invisibly as possible, because just like 1971, which both of us lived through. And do you remember Nixon coming out and saying, if you buy American, then you're not going to deal with inflation?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Oh,
And
yeah.
of
And I
course,
remember my dad being tickled to death that, if we buy American, we're supporting our own economy and all that. And it made perfect sense at the time. But my dad was drinking the Kool-Aid too.
Well, everybody, as brilliant as my Uncle Al, and, Friday night, they'd come over, and so did my Aunt Ann and Uncle Al. So it was Aunt Bertie, Uncle Allie, Aunt Dan, Uncle Al, and my parents, right? And they were smart. And I used to love to sit there and listen to them talk about their experiences during the Depression, or their experiences, when they were growing up, and I would prompt them with questions, and they were very, 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 very smart. They didn't know it. I never heard them say anything like that. I remember that Nixon speech. Anybody can go in. And by the way, let us also not forget President Johnson, who a few years earlier had taken the silver out of the money. And this was like, as an adult, I mean, I didn't think anything of it as at the time. I was a child. But as an adult, to have a sitting president tell the American public that if they attempted to hoard the silver, that the government would go in and smash that market, which they did in the 80s with the Hunt brothers.
They did.
When I look at that now, to me, that is amazing. But then again, I'm looking at a lot of things that are being said and done. And to me, that's pretty amazing that nobody's going, no, that's crazy.
No, because the old adage from George Santayana, ye who fails to remember history is doomed to repeat it.
Yep.
And I hate saying this about our own culture, Lynette, but they all want to believe that things are going to be wonderful, fantastic. The government's going to take care of everything, blah, 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 blah. And all they're doing is just ganging up on us slowly, but slowly, but slowly. And they have learned from masters before them, and they've become more masters than the people they learned from. Because you particularly have said this many, many, many times. They have all got us addicted to.
Mhm. I love that. That's actually good. I might use that. Yes.
You're
I
welcome.
love that.
If you want, I'll send it to you. I'll make another one for myself.
Oh, I love that.
In fact, to be honest with you, I'm gonna tell you how much I seriously appreciate you. When I first started watching you, I learned other things other than what you just taught about gold, silver, wealth protection, and everything.
Mhm.
You were on an interview with someone, I can't remember who, was way back then, and he asked you a quiz question, and he offered you, if you got the quiz question correctly, a Nikolai Tesla, if you remember that day.
I don't really remember that day, but go ahead. I'll
And I'm
believe you.
like Nikolai Tesla, I'm Serbian. I was born in America, but I'm Serbian. Nikolai was actually born in Serbia and then converted over here. And I started Googling it, and I found AppMex. I thought it was a scam company for a long time, and then I finally jumped in, and I now stack Nikolai Tesla coins. Okay, and I love Nikolai. In fact, I'd love to see our country recognize his brilliance and
Oh,
give
yeah.
us a Nikolai Tesla national holiday. So this, Lynette, is yours.
Oh, thank you. Did I get it right? I don't remember.
Yeah, you answered the question right. I forget who it was. I forget
Oh,
what.
well, they never sent me my silver coin. What is that about?
Well, I can tell you, you're going to get this one. All I need is for your people to shoot me an email with an address, and off it goes.
Okay, I love that. We'll do
But
that.
you have taught me a lot. In fact, I eventually started getting into pouring silver. This is
Mhm.
my prototype for 2024.
Love it. The tiger.
You know what? This. Sorry. This has a brand new name. The name it's going to be called is yours.
Yours. Okay, good.
And I made a bar that had both my wife's channel and my channel on it.
Nice.
So it's 5-ounce bar. And you know what we call this?
What?
Yours.
I love
I'm
that.
so appreciative of you for everything that.
Well, it's my
Oh,
pleasure. And all of this silver, this is just sterling silver. And I like people to understand that silver and gold in any form is monetary at its base. And that's so important for people to understand.
it is. But I wanted to share with you all those life experiences, and
I'm honored. And that makes me feel really good because I've known since I was an itty bitty that I was supposed to do something that had a positive impact on a lot of people. And what I've subsequently learned, when I went to Australia the time before the last time, and I went up to do my speaking engagement, and I threw out all the materials that I had prepared and I just started talking about community. And I realized that that's really what I had to do, is build that community, because there is power in numbers.
true.
And then when I went there last year, we're actually, since then, I realized that it isn't just me that's supposed to make a positive impact on a lot of people. It's us that's supposed to make a positive impact. And that's why when you're so excited that you're talking to me, because I have this kind of celebrity status for you on so many levels. It's just kind of funny to me because I'm just a person like everybody else. Um, I'm just really committed to being of service to the world. And I think that, I learned through and if you've been following me for a while, I don't really talk about this often because I don't typically get questions about it. But, nobody lives a life unscathed, and that would go for me as well. And going through some hard times and trying to figure out, why am I here? What is my purpose here? And then what I learned, without going into too many details, but what I learned is that we are all here to share the gifts that we have been given. And I've been given a lot of gifts, but I needed humility. I got that too. The universe gives you what you need, even if you don't think you want it. That's not an option. But I have been given the gift where I had my Uncle Al to guide me with tangibles, and I had the banking sector and the stuff. If I hadn't done any of that, I wouldn't understand the language. And especially if I hadn't stumbled across non-dollar denominated bonds. It's just like nobody talks about the fact that there's virtually no purchasing power left in the currency. Nobody talks about that. Brilliant people that I talk to that I have so much respect and admiration for. And I bring that up, and the answer typically is something like, well, yeah, we know about that. We just don't look at it. But that's the problem. So what is the rest of the stuff that you look at? It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant because you're not looking at the problem.
True. Very true. And it's even more so with the young people. My son, for example, he doesn't say it, but his actions speak louder than his words. His attitude is, if I ignore it, it'll go away. It doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
It just gets worse. You got to deal with your problems. And if you don't, it's just going to explode on you.
Yep. That's exactly what happens. And that's what's going to happen. I mean, that is what is already happening. None of this stuff. The only thing that I'm waiting for is the visibility. The reality is already unfolding. There's not one doubt in my mind, but that we've already entered the hyperinflationary stage. It's just not obvious to the public yet, but it will be.
How do I say this? When you look at the Marvel movies, especially the ones where they are having the superheroes fight Hydra, with that, they went into hiding after the fictional World War II portion where Captain America went after Hydra. They embedded themselves throughout the global world. All the countries, all that, until such time as they thought they were strong enough to take over. And then they had to come out of hiding, and then the world had to deal with it, okay? I personally think this whole global issue about the wealthy being in charge of everything has been a plan for decades, maybe centuries.
But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking.
And they are our Hydra.
Yes, they are.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
So, and now they're trying to take over, and you can't hide it anymore. The snake has reared its head. Yes, there are some people who refuse to believe that it's happening, but wait, if they get what they want, there's going to be worse than inflation, worse prices of gas and food, worse everything else. There's going to be taxation on top of taxation. So, I personally think that this is the nature of the human race. We are so caught up on money and power instead of supporting each other and helping each other.
Right.
Then the other section that does do the right thing, and eventually enough's enough. It's like Tears Law and Gresham's Law. Gresham's always, bad money replaces good money. And Tears Law, when bad money is so bad it's not trusted anymore, then we go back to good money.
Yep.
It's good people get taken advantage of until they can't tolerate it anymore.
And I do think that we will see a revolution, and I think it'll be on a global scale. And I'm hoping to just generate a very quiet and peaceful revolution, which we can easily do just by converting our garbage government-based money into sound money. And then, no matter what the new system is, you'll actually have something that will expand because the spot market doesn't even marginally reflect the fundamental value. I'm not counting on Wall Street to ever tell me what that is, because there's no good price discovery there. Everything's just a product to be traded. But when they do those overnight revaluations, what do? They take this that has no intrinsic value used in one place, and they revalue it against that, which is used in every sector. This is a pea shooter. This is a bazooka. I want a bazooka in this fight. Pea shooter. I don't want that.
I agree with you. In fact, you're the one who taught me to use this, hold it until the revaluation occurs, to which that's one of the many reasons I watch you, because when you tell me the revaluation has happened to the point where I can take either my silver, my gold, or both, run it in, convert it to the currency of the time, and before they devalue what they've revalued, pay off my house, my cars, my everything else, they'll keep as much of this as I can.
Yep, that's exactly right. I mean, what might take you 10 ounces, and that's what we do at Zang Enterprises, we calculate out, what do you need, right? So you establish your goals. This is what I need to accomplish. And then we do the right tool for the job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, what might take 10 ounces now might take a 20th of an ounce or a quarter of an ounce. It depends on the level of revaluation. Unless that sound crazy, I mean, what in Venezuela, that first overnight revaluation was up like 3,500%.
Oh, yeah. You showed a video back when you were with ITM of a young lady who went grocery shopping in Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
And she brought out $1 billion bolivar, their version of a dollar.
Right.
They were telling her, you can't use that to buy groceries anymore, but she wasn't using it as currency. She was using it as an envelope.
Yep.
And she unfolded the bolivar envelope and dropped in a smidgen of gold and bought her groceries.
Yep. That's exactly what happens. And unfortunately, I do have another interview coming up.
So
But we'll have to do this again.
I learned a lot from you from this interview. I would love to have you back for further interviews, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
And
How we build a community, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So everyone out there, if you haven't gone to Zang Enterprises, call them. Guys, please call this lady and her staff. Even if you are just starting, or an experienced stacker, you think you got it, but maybe you want to double check yourself, call this lady. You will not make a mistake.
Yeah, we are all here to be of service. And I work very closely with all of my strategy specialists. They were all handpicked. And honestly, you couldn't go wrong with anyone because it's an ongoing thing. I'm with them all the time.
And those of you who have not subscribed to Lynette, do so. You all will grow from this. And it doesn't cost anything to subscribe.
Exactly. And you can find me on YouTube and Twitter at the Lynette Zang, Instagram and Facebook at Lynette Zang. And of course, the website is LynetteZang.com. But you can also call us because we love human interaction, 833-GLD-ZANG.
And I'll put that all in the description below. Thank you so much, Lynette. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.